In obedience to the dream given by God to Joseph, he married Mary. The months rolled by. Joseph watched over his young wife with ever-deepening and guardian concern. And Mary, with unresting love for Joseph, cooked his meals and scrubbed and mended his clothes, never tiring of keeping that little house and shop shining and clean. It had been a very simple wedding in Mary's house. Afterwards, Joseph, arm round his bride, led her down the long and muddy street and proudly through the open door. From their first moment alone together, they knew perfect companionship. Theirs was a marriage based on the yearning of soul for soul, unbound to the earth. They were profoundly in love, so that they felt closer than any union possible to mere bodies, knowing a richness of delight that lay beyond the reach of flesh. They worked all day. They visited with Jehoiakim and Anna and neighbors and friends in the evening. At first, they were out on a few outings with friends. To the town, they seemed a normal and ordinary couple. But when they were alone together, they often talked of the wonder that had altered their lives. How very curious, Joseph sometimes found himself thinking, when all Israel was in trouble, the people hoping and praying for the promised deliverer, Mary was carrying in her womb a miraculous child. Ah, if it should really be so, Mary. God will show, she whispered, hushed and scared. We must wait. Only that afternoon, new tales had come from Jerusalem of the scheming of Herod to lay new taxes on the backs of the people. How can we pay? A traveler railed. We are starving already. Our herdsmen tend lambs that they cannot eat. We are all undernourished. More now, this Arab king is thinking about. How had he heard about Herod's secret plans? The traveler winked at Mary and Joseph. The workers of revolution had always ways of finding out everything that was going on. Their spies scrubbed and dusted in the very bedchamber of Herod and his wives. Watch and see. And then this same traveler told of how he had visited recently with Elizabeth and Zachariah. He gave a great account of their little son John. That was the strongest boy baby he had ever seen. His little hands had incredible strength, and he could already walk long before his time. But so far, John had not uttered a word. Not long afterward, Joseph learned that this visitor had known what he was talking about. The news came just when Joseph had begun to worry about Mary's condition. The village midwife and Anna both agreed that the time was not far off for her child to be born, and Joseph was insisting that Mary must not do any more housework. She must lie down a great deal and rest. He had all a young husband's terror of the first ordeal of motherhood. It was then that the word spread through every street in Nazareth of a new law from Rome. There was to be an empire-wide census. The word had an ominous sound in Israel. The people had an ancient, almost superstitious aversion to being counted. But the orders for this colossal undertaking came down straight from the emperor himself, an imperial command from Caesar Augustus. Every one of his subjects was to be enumerated and counted. And for what? Asked the little dyer in his shop down the street from Joseph. Why? Because they are going to increase the taxes and no one must get out paying. Get out of paying? Joseph laughed. You could get out of the world quicker than that.